All right, here we are, Impacting Influence Radio, right here on Opera, and today's broadcast is brought to you by Blinds of Sacramento, Sacramento's complete solution window covering experts. Give them a call, 916-790-8689, or blindsofsacramento.com. Now, today, I've got a gentleman in here, very, very important figure here, Jag Nagendra. Did I get that right? Boom, I got it. Okay, so you're running for City Council of Folsom, and this is your first run. Yes.
That is correct.
That is amazing. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about you and hearing your story. And how are you, brother?
Well, as you said, thank you for having me, and this is an exciting time in Folsom, and I am looking forward to this election season, and I've been working on this particular election for almost 2.5 years, and people have told me that, hey, you're too early. I'm like, well, now look, I got only 6 weeks left. So the time flies, and I think we have a very good momentum going. So I'm very, very excited for the future of Folsom.
So you have a engineering background. I remember, so we do a lot of stuff with Blinds of Sacramento, our sponsor, and we had to go out and shoot some window coverings install, and the owner was an engineer, and I remember we wanted to do a testimonial, and he brought out just all these sheets of paper with all of these different diagrams and what he wanted and the different color choices, and a lot of us would look at that as overthinking, but I'm one of those types, and so I'm looking at variables, and I'm looking at, is this the right decision? It's called due diligence. And I'm assuming you're that way as well, because you said, well, I put 2.5 years into this when most people would just kind of wing it and hope for the best.
Yeah, so my thought is that we must spend more time in planning and designing things than executing and building things, right? Why do we want to do that? Because if we can create a plan, then there is a higher likelihood of succeeding than executing the plan. Like, you can't build a house by just ordering some lumber and windows and doors. You got to have a plan. You got to find out where I'm going to put the house, where I'm going to put the kitchen, where I'm going to put the bathrooms. So we work the plan. The same thing happens in the engineering field. We always are trained to plan. We are always trained to design. We're not going to do anything without a design, right? So that is the mindset, and that is how my brain has been calibrated and trained for 35 years. And that's how I am. And as an engineer, I'm very logical. I'm very analytical. I take my time to analyze situations. I don't react. That is the one thing I don't do, is I do not react. I always respond, right? I teach people how not to react, but to respond instead. And it requires a lot of practice. It requires a lot of skills that we continue to build. It requires a lifelong learning for 3 decades that I have been working on.
I find that when I put myself into a situation, it never turns out well. Is that I have to remove myself from the situation. If I put myself in a situation, I'm going to react. If I remove myself, and it's not about me, it's about them, then there's no, it's a reaction instead of, you're acting instead of reacting. Is that kind of the right, it's kind of like you have to remove the ego from the equation.
Sure. I think, when we talk about reacting, that involves emotions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think for a news channel, for example, when you watch a TV, when something is happening, the news reporter always goes to somebody and say, what's your reaction?
Yes.
They will never ask, how are you going to respond, right? Because it's exciting. They want to capture the emotions of the people at that particular time. And that's where the reaction comes in. But for you and I, who are having a professional career and leading a wonderful life, we don't need to react. Because there's nothing that we need to be working on reacting. Now, why I say we don't want to react is that because we're going to regret.
And that's where maturity comes in. I think early in my career, I had a lot of reacting. At this point, I think nothing surprises me. I'm just going through the motions.
Yeah. So when we react, we have a higher risk of losing relationship, higher risk of getting ourselves isolated, higher risk of increasing stress level for ourselves. You know, when all of these things happens, our health goes down.
Oh, yes.
When health goes down, we are depressed. When we are depressed, we eat more food. When we gain weight, it's just a circle goes around.
And then that creates a bigger problem because now we have cholesterol and all kinds of stuff. Right. But we have Sherry Seagraves, Dr. Sherry Seagraves, who's one of our members, and she's actually going to be on the cover of the magazine next month. And she's a leadership coach. So she goes into organizations and teaches the leaders, from the inside, the psychological pieces in order to grow their business. It's called scaling your business from the inside out. And so you have to do it from up here, not from, what's my business doing? And so she goes in there and gets people. So she did a master class and was teaching us all kinds of stuff on how to handle certain situations and things. It was really enlightening. Yeah, I'm
True.
assuming that's where we're going with this. So talk to me about your passion. Why did you spend 2.5 years putting this together? Do you really feel that Folsom needs change, or do you feel that you have something really special to offer Folsom?
Yes, both.
Okay.
I have something very special to offer to Folsom, and also the Folsom is changing. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk specifically about the change that Folsom is seeing right now. Mm-hmm. Folsom is no longer a town of 55, 60,000 people. Mm-hmm. So now we're at 95,000.
I know, it's starting to look like Roseville.
It's going to be, we're going to cross 100,000 in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So not only we are adding more people, but also there is a lot of diversity that's coming into the town as well, right? So that piece is changing. Now, if you look at what's happening around Folsom, other cities like Rancho Cordova or Citrus Heights or even El Dorado Hills on this side, they are booming. They're doing really well in terms of economy and business development and so on. But we're kind of stuck in the middle, and we're not really seeing much traction in terms of economy and business and that's going on, right? So we had a great employer like Intel, and Intel did support a long time Folsom's economy, but it may not be the case as we go into the future, as we are seeing all the cuts and the reduction in employment that's happening across the coast. So that is really changing. And then the third is that the world itself is changing. Like how you see today that the online shopping, right, that has really affected all the cities around where the sales tax revenues have dropped.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can order everything that you need and have it delivered to your front door.
Yep. So the things around us are changing. And as you know, it's the fittest, survival of the fittest. Right? So what does that really mean? It doesn't mean that I need to build muscles. It doesn't mean I need to be 6 foot and 300 pounds to survive. It all means is that am I changing and adapting to the changing world? Right? That's the key. And if I'm not changing and if I'm not adapting, I'm going to die. And like in a business sense, for example.
I always say that if you're not green, you're dead.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
Right? That's what the business always told us, that we must continue to grow. And if you're not growing, we're dying. That's what happens. And that is the biggest challenge that we see right now in Folsom. And so these challenges,
even with all of the development going in with the new hospitals and with all of the thousands and thousands of new homes, you still think that the infrastructure isn't quite there? Because as those new homes are built, they're going to be building new shopping centers, and Palladio struggled for a long time. Now it's full. And it's become a real huge hot spot. We take our dog for a walk there in the evening sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, and it's still completely packed.
My observation is that the infrastructure has not kept up with the pace of growth. And that's something that the Folsom residents are feeling right now. And, we built 10,000 homes in south side of 50, and there is one street that gets to the north side of 50. That is a big problem for us.
Yes, it is. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I think a city like Folsom is the last thing I expect that we don't have a proper adequate infrastructure, which is for public side.
So they are talking about putting an interchange in where is that?
That's going to be Empire Ranch.
Alpine Ranch, yes. How would that work? Where would that be?
Well, Empire Ranch interchange will pretty much connect the Empire Ranch Road. Right now, it dead ends at the 50. And currently, what I understand is that the city is doing a design work on the interchange. And then once the design is complete, then we got to go through the...
That's where those two little trailers are sitting.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So once the design work is done, I'm not speaking for the city here,
Yes.
but I think what I read is that the design is done, then they go for the contracting and build. And
Yes,
so
that's
on.
what I read. Yeah, that was 2 or 3 days ago.
Yes, but we still have to find money to build it.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have the adequate money to build the interchange. But the point is that when I talk to the residents as I'm going around as part of my canvassing, the residents are asking a question that should have been built 10 years ago. That interchange should have been in place 10 years ago before we started building these homes, right? So that's the kind of questions I think make me think that as an engineer, of course it makes sense. We need to build the infrastructure first, and then you get the people in there.
Yeah, because they're working on the other side over next to Grant Line now as well, and they want to build that. I heard that they want to build that into like a Highway 65 type thing. But that road needs a lot of work, man. That needs a lot of work. But that doesn't solve from one side of Folsom to the other side of Folsom. That doesn't solve that problem at all.
Yeah, I think back to our focus on the challenges, and with the diversity comes its own challenges. With the diversity of the population, we have issues with integration. We have issues with inclusion. We have issues with assimilation. So all of this is going to be a huge challenge for us. And we need to see that, and we need to recognize that, and we need to acknowledge that so that we can put some plan in place intentionally, right? We just cannot keep ourselves quiet and say, somehow things will work out. I don't believe in that.
No, that's not the way it's supposed to go.
So we need better community engagement. We need better integration of the communities from new communities to older communities, and we have to do something to integrate, and we have to do something that there is an opportunity.
That is crazy to think, though, that there is only one road that goes into all of that. That's crazy to think. Yeah. And it's true. That's it.
But we do have Prairie City, which is on the other side, towards the west, and we're making that happen right now as we speak in a few years. But that's the pace that I'm talking about.
Yeah, but if you go back 20 years, and do you remember what Prairie City looked like 20 years ago?
I did.
It was nothing there.
Yep.
It was this one little windy road that you went because it had the fun hills, and that was it. That was all that was. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I want to talk, Quinn, about what do I bring to the table?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think which is the most important thing.
So priorities, right? Vision and priorities.
Priorities. So as I've spent 35 years in my career, and I worked for private industry, I worked for public sector. Currently, I work for state government, and I've seen both sides of how the businesses are performed on the private side and also on the public side. And I have the experience of running businesses, running my own company, and the pain of a small business owners, and also corporate world. To understand Intel or Smart or other large corporations. I've been there. I've worked for large corporations to understand. And why is this experience so important? Is because I have a highest level of empathy for understanding the issues, understanding the challenges, and understanding what solutions might be.
Well, that's your engineering brain.
Correct. That's the part of that. And in addition to that, I worked last 15 years in the community in leadership roles. So just so that I understand, right, how the government works in locally, how the system works in locally, and how the communities comes together, how the nonprofits are engaged, and where do they get their money, and what their purpose is. And I've spent more than 15 years in working in this space. I ran Indian organizations. I ran project management organization. I ran Toastmasters, and I was part of the Cal Expo. And I've done so many things, and all of these are giving me one thing, which is my my ability to work with anyone. Right? I work with different communities. I work with Asian community, Black community, Hispanic community, white community, Indian community, and I have lived with these communities to understand their perspective. I lived with this community to experience what they experience on a day-to-day and what those issues are, right? And those experiences are extremely important as a city council member who is making decisions and voting on a particular resolution, because it's not about just voting on a resolution, but also having done something about it, so that I can ask a meaningful question. I can ask a question that makes the city staff think through this process, right? That's the biggest difference we bring in. And in addition to that, public service has been my passion. And I went back to almost 40 years ago and analyzed what was I doing in 40 years ago. And there is a pattern I've seen. And when I was 10 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, 18 years old, I have done so many things in those ages, which everything points to one thing, that is, when there is trouble, I raise my hand. When there is a problem, I ran to the problem. When nobody was stepping up, I stepped up. When everybody said you cannot do it, I said I can do it, right? If nobody wants to carry this, I will carry and I will show you, right? That's the leadership. Right? Leadership is stepping up under stressful situation. Leadership is about managing the stress, managing the difficult situation. And leadership is having those skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the abilities, and the competence, and the ability to communicate, articulate, think, proactive, and plan. Those are the things we need.
And lead.
Right? Again, leading is, I teach leadership a lot. And in my world, when I teach leadership is, I will consider you a leader if you're developing leaders. Okay? So if you're not developing leaders, then I will not consider you as a leader. You may be doing great. You may be leading your organization, but your job is to develop the future leaders.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's funny. In my very first book, you go back 15 years ago or so. Gosh, it's probably been longer than that now. I talk about building a business and build your business like a child, right? And so you want to love it, nurture it, and give it everything. And it's going to make you happy. It's going to make you sad. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you laugh. But at the end of the day, you give it everything that you've got. It's going to grow up and outlive you. And so essentially, that's the same thing in what you're saying with the leaders. Is you want to pour your heart out into these people because you want them to be the ones that then take the lead.
Yes, and I think especially in public service, what I have discovered is that I need to have a passion for helping people. I need to have how do I know that I have a passion, right? Is the way when I see somebody is growing, it gives me immense joy. It almost feels like, I got $1 million lottery. When I see somebody is uplifted from a community where they are treated badly, or they're going through, bankruptcy, or they're going through, relationship problems, when they move out of that, I see that, oh man, that's the greatest thing we have accomplished, right? So this is something that I've been doing for 35 years. I talk about my own business. When I started my engineering firm in 1994, I intentionally gave jobs to underprivileged population. I intentionally gave jobs to people who did not have degrees.
That's actually what we're doing with the magazine. This magazine is not for Safe Credit Union or Golden One or Kaiser. This magazine is designed to help the people who aren't given chances.
Correct.
That's why it's priced where it's at. That's why it's distributed where it's at. That's why it's doing what it's doing.
Right. Well, I came from a very poor family, very poor background, very underprivileged myself. And I know what it took us to get out of that. And if I don't do anything, from what I learned, if I don't give it back to this underprivileged, then my purpose on this earth is wasted, right?
Yes, exactly.
So my purpose is to make sure that I take care of other people who are behind me, right? Also, I keep looking to the front, but I want to make sure that I am thoughtful. I want to make sure that I am empathetic. I want to make sure that the decisions we make today we think through 20, 30 years from now and make those decisions such a way that we have something for the next generation.
No, it's perfect. Talk to me real quick before we start to wrap her up. Talk to me about gap analysis and your philosophy on this.
Yeah, so gap analysis is a term we use in most of the organizations, which is when we create a vision, right? So, for example, my vision for Folsom is that I want every resident, 95,000 residents in Folsom, I want everyone feel safe, valued, and included. Okay? Very simple, 3 words. I want them to feel safe, valued, and included. Half the population may feel it today, but the same half the population may not feel it next week. Half the population may feel they're included. Half the population may not feel it included. It's a very dynamic circle, right? So how does the gap analysis come into the picture? That's the vision, right? I want everybody to feel safe. Now, on August 17th, I want to know how many people feel safe. How many people are scared about what, right? And I want 100% of the people to feel safe. And if I do the survey and if I do the analysis, if it says it's the 60% of the people feel safe, 40% doesn't feel, that means I have a gap of 40%, right? So this is the gap analysis in a very simple terms. So then we need to understand how do we bridge that 40% gap, right? Then we need to look at why are the people not feeling safe, right? Why do they feel that they're not included? Why do they feel they're not valued in the system, right? So that means we have to be very specific about bringing new programs. We have to be specific about actions that the city can take in their capacity, or as a council member that I can do within my authority and capacity to bridge that gap, right? Because it's very simple that, as you know, in business, we can't manage if we can't measure, right?
Yeah.
So anything you want to manage, you have to measure it. So if we want to,
very interesting.
So if we want to build a happy family, then we need to measure: are we happy now? So we need to know, are we happy or not, right?
Yeah, and we also need to know what it is that you're striving for, so we know where to go. Okay. It's called. I've always said it's like going to Disneyland, right? You don't just get in the car and drive towards Disneyland hoping to arrive at Disneyland. Odds are you might make it, but you're probably not going to make it. You have to have that roadmap. And so
you got to know the destination.
Yeah.
You got to know how to get there.
And anything in business, the way I've always run it is if your goal is here, you start working your way back. And the more you work your way back, you end up right where you are today, and now you know where to go.
Well, yeah, that's very important thing, because all we have is 2 things in this world: goal and a means to achieving the goal. Entire world, okay, fights on these 2 things. Okay. So either people agree with the goal and they disagree with how to get to the goal, or they don't agree with the goal, but they agree with how to get somewhere. Right? This is you can take the world problem in this statement. This is it. This is what it is. It comes down to, right? But how we do this, right? You and I agree on a goal. Let's say we want to go to Disneyland. You want to go to Disneyland? I want to go to Disneyland. Okay, that's our goal is. You say you may want to fly and I want to drive. That's fine. Let's get there. But we shouldn't be fighting about we should fly or we should drive. That's the problem. That's where we are in right now, in this whole country, in the whole world. We're fighting for means to get to the destination. Yeah. Right? It doesn't really matter, because our goal is to get there. You want to come by flight? Please do.
Well, that's why it's one of the things. I've written a lot of political books, and that's always been my biggest, the left and the right, the Democrat and Republican, whatever you want to call them, liberal and conservative, it's all the same thing. And so we all want the same thing. The Democrat wants their families to be safe and educated and well-fed and happy. And that's all the Republican wants. The difference I have found is that one is thinking logically and the other is thinking emotionally. That's what I've found. And so what you end up with is people that are trying to get to the same goal 2 different ways. Instead of if the 2 people sat down and said, okay, how do we accomplish what we both want to accomplish? But they don't. They just want to fight all the time.
Yeah, I think, in the example that we have been talking about, Disneyland, what happens is that, yes, for example, you agree that you want to fly and I agree that I want to drive, but let's try that, right? It's two different approaches to getting the same place. However, you may learn something in the process, that you may learn that it is best to drive, or I may learn that it is best to fly.
We already know the statistic. It's safer to fly,
Right.
and it's more efficient.
More efficient, more safer.
Yeah.
But it could be that sometimes, we miss the flight.
There's more steps.
Correct. But depending on our experiences, we can adapt.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if just because I want to drive, and just because you want to fly, we can't take the same approach all the time. Right. So we need to have some flexibility. We need to be able to say, you know what, that was a good idea then, but today it may not work.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm ready to open.
I'm looking forward to seeing where this journey takes you. I really am. Jag Nagendra, City Council for Folsom, jag4folsom.com. Telephone if you want to know more or connect, 916-897-0033, 916-897-0033. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Quinn.
Absolutely. And anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Thank you for having me. And as you mentioned in your closing remarks, I encourage your listeners to check my website out.
Yeah.
And then reach out to me if they have any questions or comments, or if they have any ideas that they can help make Folsom better and more inclusive and more safer. And I would welcome any ideas from anybody in the world.
jag4folsom.com. Hey, thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank everyone so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.